Croeso Bell, my friends. I hope this finds you well. And so, yesterday's gospel was one that really did sort of ring a bell with me. It's the wedding at Cana, and I love that gospel for a bunch of different reasons. But I wanted to share yesterday's sermon with you when the wine runs out. See, John tells us that Jesus' first sign doesn't happen in a synagogue. It's not a temple. It's not even a moment of great religious seriousness. It happens at a wedding. A wedding, now we've all been to weddings, right? It happens at a wedding, at a party. It's a place of laughter, of music, of the ordinary human joy, isn't it really? And that alone should be a massive amount of reassurance, because Jesus chooses to reveal his glory, not in a distant, abstract way, but in closeness. Not in abstraction, but in the middle of everyday messy life. I mean, weddings, they're a great occasion, but they can be real messy as well. And he's present where people gather, where relationships matter, where celebration and vulnerability live side by side. Then something goes wrong. Then the wine runs out. Now, for you and I, that seems like a small problem, doesn't it? The wine runs out, we go down the local off licence, we pick a couple of bottles up, we come back, we say, here you go, prices averted, job done. But in the ancient culture of the Middle East, it was actually a bit of a social disaster. You see, the wine running out meant shame for the family. It meant embarrassment that would linger long after all the guests had gone home. You'd be remembered as the dry wedding. Oh, yeah, remember that wedding, the dry one? That would be you. And if we're honest, though, so many of us will know exactly what it feels like when the wine runs out, right? You see, we'll start something and we start it with joy. We start it with energy. We start it with hope. And somewhere along the way, it dries up. Things go wrong. Relationship, it becomes strained. The faith starts to feel a wee bit thin. The strength we thought we had is suddenly no longer there. The bottle is empty, right? We find ourselves thinking, this is not how it was supposed to be. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I wanted. At the wedding, Mary, Jesus' mother, she notices the wine situation and she doesn't panic. She doesn't lecture. She simply brings the need to Jesus. They have no wine. That's what she says to him. And that in itself is an act of faith. She doesn't tell him how to fix it. She doesn't even ask him directly. She just tells him they got no wine. She places the truth, the need, before him. And that's an invitation to us, because when we reach that point where we say, this is not how it was supposed to be, when we get there, sometimes all we can do is go to that prayer. Sometimes all we can do is place that need before him. That invitation that we receive through today's gospel. Prayer, you see, there are some wonderful, wonderful intercessors, I know. Some truly great wordsmiths. One, John, I could listen to him intercess all day long. Great intercessor. And they're great, but sometimes it's enough to simply just sit quietly and say, Lord, here's what's empty. To bring that need before him, that this is not how it was supposed to be. To bear that in front of him and say, this is how it was supposed to be. This is empty. Help. And Jesus' response in this to his mother can sound strange to us. I remember as a kid absolutely wrestling with this gospel reading, because Jesus says, my hour has not yet come. And I remember thinking, why doesn't he want to help these people? The mind of a child, right? As I got older, I started to look at it slightly different. And now, being in the church in Wales, Mary always puts me in mind of those old Welsh mums in this moment, because she doesn't listen to him insofar as his objections. She loves him and she listens to him. She ignores what he says, not through disrespect, but through faith. She ignores him because she believes in her son. She knows he's ready, even if he doesn't. In that wonderful way that everybody's mum knows them so very well. Mary knows Jesus so very well. And I love what we see here, though, because Mary still has authority. Even if Jesus is the Son of God, he still listens to his mother, and he acts. And what he does is he acts quietly. He acts without drawing attention to himself. He tells the servants to fill the wine jars with water. Or rather, just to fill the jars with water, not wine. Something ordinary, like plain old simple water. This worked so much yesterday better because I actually had a glass of water with me. And it's not a small amount of water that he tells them to get. These large jars are around 20 to 30 gallons. That's a lot of water, and these things would have been heavy as. And they're filled to the brim with water. And you know why this matters? This massive amount, why we're told it? Because John could have just said Jesus turned water into wine, boom, moving on. He doesn't. He actually goes into a wee bit of detail, and he tells us why. Why this much water? Why does John tell us that? I'll tell you now. Because when God works in our lives, it begins with obedience to ordinary things. Hear me out, okay? The everyday. So things like giving grace when we're given the chance to. A small act of prayer during the day. And listen, I've said it before. It's okay if your prayers literally are, stay green, please stay green. We've all been there, right? But these ordinary obediences, these little things that we do over time, turning the other cheek, seeing the other person as the child of God whenever we have a dispute, they grow over time. And the small little acts of obedience start to become bigger and bigger. And we start to be more and more transformed. We start to be more and more better. The servants at the wedding didn't understand what Jesus was doing. But they trust him enough to do as he asks. And in that trust, transformation happens. Water becomes wine. A lot of water becomes a lot of wine. And it's not just any wine, it's the best wine. We're told this. So here's the grace-filled part of the story, folks. The best comes in an abundance after the shortage. The wine dries up, there is nothing left. And all of a sudden, an abundance, 30 plus gallons of the best wine arrives. It's more than even I could drink on my own, but it's more than enough for a party. Because friends, the finest wine appears after the embarrassment. The finest wine appears after the fear. The finest wine appears after everything seems to be falling apart. You see, God is not a God who abandons the celebration when it falters. This is a God who steps in and restores joy. Not in a minimal way, but in a maximum, in an abundance kind of way. 20 to 30 gallons. There is a reason John tells us that many. John tells us it's that much so we can see the abundance of his gifts. And John tells us that this is the first sign that Jesus reveals his glory. Now look at that. It's the first miracle he does. It's the first sign he gives. And it's not power for its own sake. It's not spectacle. Jesus doesn't do this and go, boom, water into wine. Who wants some, eh? He simply, quietly creates water into wine. His glory in this instance is revealed as generosity. His glory in this instance is revealed as care, as quiet, attentive love. And notice this too, right? Not many of the guests ever know what happened. This miracle is largely hidden from those who are attending the wedding. The couple are spared shame. And I'm not even sure they know what happens. We hear the groom being told, oh, this is the best wine. But did he know where it came from? Or do this loving couple have their entire wedding saved and they know nothing about it? How many times does that happen to you or me? How many times are we saved and we know nothing about it? Because God's grace works gently. It preserves dignity. It restores joy without demanding credit. And that is so deeply reassuring, guys, because it means that even when we don't see it, it means that even when we can't name it, God's grace may already be at work in our lives, turning what feels thin and lifeless into something rich, into something sustaining. And this story, it doesn't promise us that life will never run dry. Indeed, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We're told time and time again, you won't face hardship. Jesus doesn't say that. He says you won't face hardship alone. This story promises us that emptiness is not the end. Jesus meets us not in perfection, but in need. Not when everything is flowing, but when we whisper, there's nothing left. He doesn't scold. He doesn't shame. He doesn't say we should have planned better. He simply brings new life, quietly, generously, and often more beautiful than we ever imagined. So guys, listen, if you feel that the wine has run out, if hope, faith, strength, joy, all these things feel like they've run out, this is the good news, right? Christ is still sat at the table. He's still in the business of transformation. What feels like the end may in fact be the moment when grace is just beginning. Because with God, the celebration is never over. Jars that we've got around us, the jars of our lives, they can still be filled. And honestly, the best wine, the best grace, the best of us, it's not in the empty jars behind us. It's in the ones that He will fill that are yet to come. God bless you, my friends, and take care.